and welcome to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. I'm Juliet, the daughter.
That must make me Kevin the dad, as always.
And Dad, is it me or is it feeling hot, hot, hot in here?
Oh, good Lord.
Listen, I had to because this week we are talking about Buster Poindexter. So, Dad, what do we need to know?
We need to know that David Roger Johansen was born January 9th, 1950 on Staten Island. As a teen, he was involved in Charles Littleham's ridiculous theater, from whom he got the phrase personality crisis, because one day Charles Ludlam was saying, "I'm having a personality crisis." And David just stored that phrase away for future use.
Huh.
And he also got the idea of cross-dressing, and that would also come in handy too. In the late 1960s, he was the lead singer for a local Staten Island band, the Vagabond Missionaries. Around 1971 or 72, he was recruited to be the singer for the New York Dolls when bassist Arthur Kane and drummer Billy Mercier showed up at his East 6th Street apartment. Now, Arthur Kane was like a huge guy. He was like 6 foot plus.
Oh, man.
Knocks on David's door. David opens the door, and Arthur Kane looks at him and says, "We heard you could sing." He just had this really high voice.
Huh.
And David was looking for a band. They all left the apartment and went up 4 blocks to Johnny Thunder's apartment. And just like that, they were a band. And David was impressed with Johnny Thunder's apartment because he had the bathtub in the bathroom, not in the kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he had a real apartment. So Dave thought, wow, this guy must be rich. The first lineup was the 4 of them, along with guitarist Rick Rivets, who was replaced a few months later by Sylvain, a.k.a. Sylvain Mizrahi, which I think he might be related to Isaac.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think he could be.
Oh, potentially.
And I forgot to look up the connection, so that's on me, listeners. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Sylvain had originally started the band with Billy Mercier back in the late 60s, and they had an early version of the Dolls in 1970. Eventually, they called themselves the New York Dolls, the name for which came from the New York Doll Hospital, which was across the street from a men's boutique where Sylvain worked. And I think, well, working in men's clothing, maybe they are related. I don't know. I'll have to check after. They first performed on Christmas Eve 1971 at a homeless shelter, the Endicott Hotel.
Aww.
They were getting some music industry interest and got a break when Rod Stewart invited them to open for him at a London concert. But whilst touring in England, Billy Mercier OD'd at a party.
Oh, shit.
He was put in the bathtub and force-fed coffee.
Oh, God.
Which resulted in asphyxiation.
Ah, crap.
Yep, so he didn't make it. Back in New York, the band auditioned drummers, who included Mark Bell, who would go on to be Marky Ramone for the Ramones, and
Cool.
I could not believe this, Peter Criscola, also known as Peter Criss, also known as the Cat, who drummed for Kiss.
Wow, okay.
They picked Jerry Nolan, who was a friend of the band, to be the drummer. They signed with Mercury Records, and Todd Rundgren produced their first album. According to David, whilst being interviewed by Terry Gross on NPR's Fresh Air, back around 2004 or so, the only thing he could remember about recording the debut album was the lights on the control board. And I quote, "I thought they were really pretty." New York Dolls was released in July of 1973. The cover featured a photo of the band in exaggerated drag and was used for its shock value. The back cover showed the band in the usual stage wear. Critics loved the album, and it's looked on as one of the precursors of punk rock.
Oh, wow.
And, of course, it didn't sell well.
Oh.
There was a follow-up, 1974's appropriately named Too Much Too Soon, produced by George Shadow Morton, who had produced the Shangri-Las back in the 1960s.
Oh,
And
cool.
the New York Dolls, especially David Johansen, was a huge Shangri-Las fan, and he still is. And I just finished reading an oral history of the girl groups, and he gets interviewed a lot about the Shangri-Las. And again, second album, more rave reviews, but not a lot of sales. And the thing about the second album is it has like a cleaner sound. And
is it bad clean?
Well, Rolling Stone said that the clean sound highlighted the sleaziness of the band even more.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a great way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. They said to the point where you could actually hear David Johansen's snare.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And it's just one of my favorite albums ever. Anyway, by 1975, the Dolls were playing smaller venues. Malcolm McLaren somehow became their kind of sort of manager, and he decided, hey, let's dress up the band in red leather, and hey, let's use a communist flag as a backdrop for when they're playing on stage.
Oh no!
Guess what?
They got spit at.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
Mercury Records dropped the band that same year. Johnny Thunders and Jerry Nolan left the band, and the remains of the band limped to the finish line by the end of 1976.
Oh.
David signed with Blue Sky Records, a subsidiary of Columbia, and put out 5 albums, 2 of which were live, one of them being Live It Up, which, for me, is one of the greatest live albums ever. It also got him his first kind of sort of hit with his Animals medley of We Gotta Get Out of This Place, Don't Bring Me Down, and It's My Life. And it was played on MTV a lot.
Oh, cool.
And he also did a New Year's Eve concert, which was specifically for MTV, and I think that might have been back in 82.
Can you still find it?
It might be out there somewhere. He also put out one more album on indie label Passport Records called Sweet Revenge. And while all of that was going on, David would go to a bar near where he was living in Gramercy Park. They would have acts do residencies there, play like 3 or 4 nights a week for about a month.
Mm-hmm.
And he decided he would do a Roadhouse show and sing whenever he wanted. Because he noticed that Monday nights no one was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought, oh, I just want to go down there and sing whatever I want to sing.
And go nuts and no one can judge me.
But he wanted to use a pseudonym so people wouldn't be yelling out, hey, do Funky But Chic, do Personality Crisis. And that's where he came up with the nom de plume of Buster Poindexter. Which I don't know if you got to see that Johnny Carson interview that he did.
Yes, he got Buster from his mother, and he got Poindexter from the kids in school for reading the dictionary. He said, you know how most kids, they have the dictionary on the outside and Playboy on the inside? For me, it was the opposite. A Playboy on the outside and the dictionary on the inside.
He always was good for Shaggy Dog stories.
Yeah.
What started out as a 3-piece band eventually evolved into a 15-piece backing Buster.
Oh, cool.
Buster started the pairing as part of Saturday Night Live's house band. And in 1987, he put out his self-titled album on RCA Records. He got a hit with Hot, Hot, Hot.
Yep.
And much to David's, well, not exactly displeasure, but it kind of put a cramp in his lifestyle because he said he was making a nice living, you know. He'd walk to work once a week every Monday, do his gig, then go back home, and that was that. But now he had a hit, and he had to hit the road. And Buster ended up putting out a total of 4 albums, and then he hung it up in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, David was acting, getting bit parts here and there, and he did score a few big roles, most notably as Looney, the cab driver in Let It Ride, and also the Ghost of Christmas Past in Scrooge, starring Bill Murray.
That's what most people of my generation would know him for.
Yeah, and this also probably explains how David was also in 2015's A Very Murray Christmas, which you can find on Netflix. He's also done voice work playing, and I kid you not, Ding Dong Daddy on an episode of Teen Titans.
Yep.
And he is also Bear Tar on Netflix's Centaur World.
I haven't seen that.
And I gotta say, if Hanna-Barbera ever reboots the Flintstones, he would be the perfect voice of Fred Flintstone.
He would be, 100%.
In 2000, David Johansen turned to the blues with a new group called the Harry Smiths. And Harry Smith was a guy who put out this anthology of American folk music, which you can find on Smithsonian Records, and I bought it from the library, and I got through 1 disc before I said, I can't do this. I just can't. I really tried. They put out albums in 2000 and 2002, and then along came Morrissey. Turned out that one Stephen Morrissey was the president of the New York Dolls fan club back in the 70s.
Oh, cool.
So in 2004, he organized a reunion of surviving members David, Arthur Kane, and Sylvain, because Johnny Thunders had OD'd,
Yep.
and I believe Jerry Nolan may have done the same. I could be 100% wrong on that. They played London's Meltdown Festival, and unfortunately, Arthur Kane died of leukemia soon thereafter.
Oh.
David and Sylvain soldiered on. They put up.
1 second. Jerry Nolan, he died. Well, here's what happened. In 1991, he was being treated for bacterial meningitis and bacterial pneumonia at St. Vincent's in New York, and then he suffered a stroke and went into a coma from which he never recovered, and he died while on life support.
Oh, okay.
So,
thank you for looking that up. I should have done that.
It was kind of way worse.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so they put out 3 albums as the New York Dolls, toured around, and then they called it a day in 2016 because David said, I've done everything I can possibly do with this.
I'm good.
Unfortunately, Sylvain died of cancer in 2021, leaving...
Oh my God, he's the only one?
Leaving David the last doll standing.
Oh, no.
And he was recently the subject of a documentary co-directed by Martin Scorsese and David Tedeschi. It was released in April 2023. Now, it was a concert filmed at the Café Carlisle in January 2020 with Buster singing the David Johansen songbook.
That's interesting.
And his backing band was just a 4-piece, and the performance is interspersed with interviews from the 1970s up to 2023. And I saw the documentary, and he can still get the big pompadour going with his hair.
He doesn't look so good now, though.
He's been through a lot.
Yeah, I can't blame him.
He got older.
Yeah.
He's 74 now.
Oh, wow, okay.
And the concert was like Café Carlisle, so it's just like a small audience, and Debbie, Harry, and Chris Stein were in there, and like
great venue.
other assorted friends and whatnot. David Johansen has been eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since 1998.
Get him in there.
And guess what? The New York Dolls were nominated in 2022, but head-scratchingly, they did not get in. And all I can say is WTFF. You get James Taylor in there, but you cannot get the New York Dolls in there. Come on.
God, it's all politics.
Yeah, so as for me, I had always heard of the New York Dolls, but I had never heard of their stuff. And I do remember hearing David's Animals medley on the radio back in the 1980s, and that caused me to buy the Live It Up on vinyl back then. And like I said, it's one of my favorite albums ever, and I actually managed to find a used copy of it on CD, I think from Newberry Comics. Now, as for Buster, I bought the vinyl album used at In Your Ear back when they were in Providence, and now they're in Warren, and it actually came packaged with a T-shirt of Buster on the cover of a local weekly paper at that time called The New Paper. And it was this really like loud yellow banana colored T-shirt. And it just had the front page of the New Paper with this picture of Buster's face on it.
Do you still have that shirt?
I wish I did. But you know what? You can bet that I wore that when I saw him in his Banshees of Blue at Rhode Island College back in 87 or 88. And yes, they had it in the cafeteria. They cleared out the cap, and at one point, like I was kind of sitting close, he saw the shirt, and I got a thumbs up from him.
Yay!
And also, there was a massive conga line throughout the whole,
Oh, cool.
the band just like, jumped off the stage, and, just everyone in the audience participated, and we just went around, and it was such a fun show, just tons of fun. He's going back and forth to the audience, and people are yelling out New York Doll songs, and he's, nah, I don't do that transvestite shit anymore. And looking back in hindsight, I thought, oh, if you only knew back then. Anyway, I got the used CD version sometime later, and again, I probably got it from Newberry Comics. And the cover is great. It's just Buster and his big hair.
Looking like a Looney Tunes character come to life.
Oh, yeah, he's wearing the tux, and he's sipping a martini with pinky extended. True class act. As for the songs themselves, they're all covers, except for the very last 2.
Cool.
So let's dive in.
But before we do, I told Dad I was going to ask a question. So, you said that David Johansen / Buster Poindexter was the most fun concert you'd ever been to. But when I asked you, what's the best concert you've ever been to, you said Bruce Springsteen. So, Dad, I have to pose the question. Why is it that the most fun concert you've ever seen doesn't necessarily equal the best concert you've ever seen?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it was because Bruce played for 4 hours,
Uh-huh.
and he just like left everything out on the stage. He just gave everything that he possibly had.
So Buster didn't give everything he had that night?
Yeah, he did too. I mean, Bruce did too.
So what tips Bruce over Buster? Just the 4 hours and you could marvel at it?
Yeah, it was incredible. They did 2 hours, took about a 20-minute break, and then did another 2 hours. And he was just great with the audience. Yogi Bear came out at one point. Kind of tough to top Yogi Bear. It was great. Just told Shaggy Dog stories, did his whole, 4 hours worth of his music, and just had a good rapport with the audience. And what can I say?
Okay. All right. Well, guess that's the answer. All right. First track.
But Buster was a fun. That was a great concert. It was a fun show. You know,
So is he
1 and 1A.
Oh, 1 and 1A. Okay.
I don't know.
I was gonna ask the
And I have
ranking
to work
order.
the Bengals' first concert in there, seeing him at the living room, front row, like everyone's just jammed against the stage, and you know, there was like Michael Steele's in front of me, she's just looking like a badass playing the bass, and it was just a great show.
All right.
Anyway, we should probably talk about Buster.
Yeah. First track, smack dab in the middle. My first note, every rocker from the 50s could sue. Because it sounds like a rock song straight out of that decade, and I didn't know this was a cover. I thought he wrote this one. You could argue, though, that the instruments get more bluesy or jazzy in the middle. This is a song about being in the middle of the action. He wants to be where the rock and roll party is. Rock music, fancy clothes and cars, good food, and girls not over 22. Since I was currently listening to the Lolita audiobook, I pray the minimum is 21. As for his voice, something about it bothers me. It sounds rocky, and at one point I like how he lets it rip with the oh yeah, crescendoing and decrescendoing quickly as he lets it rip. But his voice sounds thick. Not thick in the sense your voice sounds when you have a cold, but thick like too much frosting slapped onto a cake. I can't explain it, but if you listen to it, you'll get what I mean. As for the song itself, I get the point after the second verse, and the repetition gets annoying. As for Charlie Calhoun, he sounds very laid back and too cool for the room. I think the key to this song is finding a happy medium between him and Buster.
Yeah, this was written and performed by Charles Calhoun, also known as Jesse Stone, back in 1955. It's also been recorded by the Mills Brothers and Ray Charles, among others. And I gotta say, all those versions are good, but Buster, I think, man, he just brings it. He just wants to be in the middle of good times, whether it's dressing to the nines, gorging on food or drink, or breaking the bank, or 50 chicks not over 22. Check their IDs. Anyway, great opening and pretty much sets up the rest of the album. And yeah, your mom also has a problem with his voice, especially when he sings Build Me Up Buttercup on Live It Up. She says it's the equivalent of shoveling snow, like working too hard at it. But that's just...
I didn't get that from him.
But that's just his voice. It's always been like that. And I think I guess just the years have taken its toll on it. And I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. Because I think on some songs, like, he really, like, goes, like, balls to the wall. But other songs, I think he can really rein it in.
He does, yeah.
And I think he knows how to control his voice depending on what the song calls for. But I definitely get your point about, like, the thickness of the voice sometimes.
Yeah. Next track, Bad Boy. Those la 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 la's had me rolling my eyes.
Oh, those are ridiculous.
He doesn't sound like a bad boy. He sounds like a drunk, lazy bum. All the trouble he's gotten into is from his own ennui. But he's laughing because while everyone else is working hard and busting their tail and sweating bullets, he's lying down in the shade. He thinks he has it made, but I find him very sad. Hearing the Jive Bombers version explains Buster's delivery, but the Jive Bombers one sounds even sadder and appropriately so.
This was first written and recorded in 1936 by Lil Armstrong, Louis' second wife.
Oh.
And Avon Long is also listed as a co-writer. Yeah, I think she could keep up with him. And she didn't take any crap from him. And gave him what for.
Well, if she found out about that secret kid that he had, maybe not.
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if she ever did. So yeah, it became a hit for the Jive Bombers in 1957. And yeah, I think that version heavily influenced Buster's cover. I think his vocal is hilarious when he does that. La, 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 la. I'm like, oh my god, you gotta be kidding! It's like, yeah, you know, he sings how life is just a bowl of cherries, and yeah, he's lazy and just watches life go by, but he always ends up on his feet. And I don't think it's ennui. I don't think he's bored. It's just like, you know, he's got it made in the shade, and he's just one of those guys who could fall on a pile of shit and come up smelling like roses. And I think
He'll still smell like shit to me.
um, I think his vocals relaxed as the life he sings about, and the band responds in kind. Yeah, those la la las just always crack me up because he's like I think people maybe look at him as like, oh, he's such a bad boy. You know, what kind of life is he living? But it's like, yeah, I am, but I don't care. Life is good.
Like Mitch.
That would be evil Mitch, not good Mitch, by the way.
I haven't seen Good Mitch in a while, actually. Next track, Hot, 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 the one song everyone knows. Here's what I want to know. The music is arranged in the style of Latin dance, but the way he's speaking and singing the verses sounds almost like Jamaican patois. This is definitely what? Oh, I thought we were going to say something. Never mind. This is definitely a song for a dance at a party during the summer. People are feeling hot on the dance floor, physically hot and smoking hot and sexy. If this came on the dance floor, I'd still dance. And they give you room between each verse and chorus to dance. There's also even some patter that allows the dancers to engage with the song via call and response. I may not be impressed with the album so far, but if you don't get up and dance to this song, or at least bob your head like I did, you must be dead inside. As for the original, I could see why Buster shortened it to 3 to 4 minutes, but the two covers musically are the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was first written and performed in 1982 by Arrow, a.k.a. Alphonsus Cassel from Montserrat. It did pretty well in the UK in 1984, and it did better in 1994 when it was re-released as a remix called the World Carnival Mix 94. And it's originally a calypso tune. It's a 7-minute long calypso tune, but to me it didn't feel that long because I think everything's just clicking on this, and it just has such a great bass line, and it's such a fun song, and you have to dance to it. And I could see this version being played at parties that it's kind of like a more laid-back version where it's kind of like almost like background, but you could probably see people just, you know, kind of like bobbing in place.
I don't see it as laid back due to the energy that he's giving to it.
But I think Buster's version makes Arrow sound positively mellow.
Yes, it does.
Because the man is just like so in your face. And his version hit number 45 on the Hot 100 chart. So close to the top 40, just so close. But that didn't matter as it was played everywhere. Weddings, parties, bar mitzvahs, and yes, of course, when he played it at Rick, this is whence the conga line came.
Yep.
And my favorite bit, like you said, you know, you've got like the patter when the girls say, "Hey, Buster," he's like, "Yes, girls."
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that just always cracks me up. Now let us flash forward to the 2000s.
Okay.
On Fresh Air with Terry Gross, in that 2004 interview, David Johansen said that Hot, Hot, Hot is the bane of his existence.
Yeah.
And he also repeated that line in the documentary when he's talking about it in concert. And that was the one song he did not perform.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay with that. I could understand that because I found this clip of him on it was like a Dick Clark New Year's Eve thing where Ben Vereen is introducing him.
Oh, wow.
And Buster's coming out. And like, you can kind of see it on his face. Like, you know, they've got this crowd and they've got the band coming out. And you can kind of see it on his face where it's like he's trying to like bring the party feel because it's New Year's Eve. But you can kind of see it in his eyes of like, I can't believe I have to do this song again. When will it stop? And so I totally get why, you know, he's kind of tired of it. And I think the thing is, it's like, I think by this point he's probably escaped it. I think because like 37 years have passed, and the only time I hear the song is when I play the album. I really haven't heard it at like any weddings or parties in the past few years. I think maybe when it first came out, like you couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad song, and you hear it and it's like instant party. It's like Celebrate by Kool and the Gang. I mean, that song, it's working on, I think, 42 years. And everyone, as soon as you hear that, that's the first song you're going to hear at like a wedding reception or any type of party. It just gets people up and dancing.
Kool and the Gang seem more at peace with that song, though, than David Johansen does with Hot, 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 I think.
Yeah, I suppose.
Next track, Are You Lonely for Me, Baby? If you've ever been separated from your partner for a long period of time, you can relate to this song. I like how it's a duet from the perspective of the two partners to show how lonely they both are. The vocals are great, but I don't get swept up into the song where the anticipation is building for them to be together. More so, I'm sitting there like, hurry it up already! The Freddie Scott version sounds more pent up with sexual frustration and longing. Buster's just sounds plain frustrated.
Yep, this is also known as just Are You Lonely for Me? This was written by Bert Burns and first recorded by Freddie Scott in 1967, and his version hit number 39 on Billboard's Hot 100. And there have been a lot of covers, and I hope you saw that little video of Keith Richards saying it's the one song he wishes he could be credited for writing, and believe it or not, there's like a whole series on there called Ask Keith Richards, and people just ask him questions, and he's like, Freddie Scott, you only for me. Yeah, great song, man.
You make him sound like a Muppet.
Yeah, kind of. But it's hysterical because you're kind of wondering, is he going to get through the whole thing? Am I going to be able to... And where the hell are the subtitles?
You watch it and you go, yeah, this is why he was cast to play Jack Sparrow's dad.
I think Freddie Scott's version is fantastic. It's just a great lost soul song. And call me crazy, but I put it right up there with the best of Otis Redding. And I think Buster's version is respectable, and I like it, but, oh man, you got to hear Freddie's, listeners. You just owe it to yourself to hear it.
Next track, Screwy Music. Okay, that opening with the brass section was pretty funny. I like how that was kept from the original. This sounds like ballroom dance music from the 30s. I'm liking this track a lot better than I did the previous ones. I think him singing a song with this title is a perfect fit for him because, as I said, he looks like a Looney Tunes character come to life in that cover with how he's sipping the martini with some side-eye. A man is on the second floor of a mental asylum. He runs into a man who looks pretty normal and asks what he's in for. He says he's nuts about screwy music. Nutty rhythms, dizzy harmonies, silly melodies, you name it. And it all makes sense. The purists locked him up in here. The ones who say music can't be fun. This reminds me of an argument on Musicals with Cheese. Andrew says music itself can be funny, can sound funny. Jess says music itself can't sound funny. I think the opening of this track along with the banjo and piano are pretty funny. And music can be written to make you laugh. Like Jess says, the only humor in music comes from lyrics. It can't come from the music by itself.
I kind of disagree with that.
Yep,
I mean, because music should set a mood.
Yeah, exactly. This song was a good time that had me smiling, the one I enjoyed the most so far. As for the Jimmy Lunsford original, he sounds like he's mentally checked out, like someone who isn't in touch with the present moment, whereas Buster sounds zany, but like he's found his people. Two different acting choices that both really work.
I mean, I think there are some instrumentals that can be fun or funny or silly, like, you know, yakety sax, Baby Elephant Walk, like basically all the stuff I want played at
your funeral.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, this was written and recorded by Jimmy Lunsford and his orchestra in 1935 with Willie Smith on vocals. Originally, it was called I'm Nuts About Screwy Music. And Jimmy goes to the state asylum, comes across the patient, and he's like, why are you here? And he's like, I'm nuts about screwy music. He's screwy about nutty rhythm, and the band responds in kind. And they also do so when he says he's daffy about goofy tempo, goofy about daffy changes, and so on and so on. And I think the song is a real challenge for any band to play because they got to be like right on it with each line. And I think Buster and the Banshees do Jimmy Lunsford proud. And I like how Buster contributes some of the insane laughing along the way. And it's just a fun song. And I've got to confess, when I first heard this song, before I did the research, I always thought it was a Spike Jones song, especially at the end. They drop in some of his like musical trademarks. It just seems like something that they would have come in. So I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it was someone else. And someday I will make you do a Spike Jones episode. Today is not that day.
No, I think I OD'd on that album as a kid. It just made, the bunny song made me burst into tears because I heard it so many times. All right, next track. Good Morning, Judge. That opening is iconic. We hear the banging of a gavel and Buster talking with a thick New York accent. "Order in the court! You've been brought here for drinking!"
"When do we start?"
says the rabble. We meet 3 of the rabble. One accidentally slept with a minor. I'm noticing a troubling theme here. Another is in debt to his wife and would rather be in jail than pay a dime, which reminded me of that Krista Stefano sketch I showed you, so when he was in high school when 9/11 happened, and he was panicking because his mom worked at the World Trade Center, and one of the kids made a joke about it, and Chris broke a chair over the kid's head, and his mom ended up being fine. She just fell off the bus in Brooklyn while trying to get out, but the school expelled him for, breaking a chair over a kid's head. And his dad, who was in prison, said, "I'm going to come down there and I'm going to negotiate." So they get in the principal's office, and his dad basically says, "I'd rather be in actual jail with my friends than have to deal with his mother if he's kicked out of school." Long story short, he ended up not getting kicked out of school. Anyway, the third guy we hear is the guy who avoids paying his income tax on purpose. Can't defend that one, buddy. That's how they got Capone. Anyway, the judge has enough of them saying they're guilty and sentences them to 211 years with 36 more tacked on due to contempt of court. Now hurry up and bring in the next victims. I got a golf game this afternoon. A mini musical theater number in 3 minutes. I loved it. As for, is it Winona Judge?
Winona Harris.
Winona Harris.
You're thinking of Winona Judd.
Oh, I misread it. Sorry. As for Winona Harris, he's definitely singing this with a shit-eating grin on his face.
Oh,
what,
yeah.
Me? Do those things? Nah, come on, look
Yeah,
at me.
yep.
Buster fleshes it out more, though.
So this was originally written by Louis Innes and Winona Harris and recorded by Harris in 1950. And yeah, I thought it was kind of like Buster's just getting in one jam after another, like hitting the town with Lucy Brown, who turns out that her pop was a city cop and she was just 15, and as they say, 15 will get you 20.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's stiffing his ex on alimony and cheating on his taxes, which, very brave of him, because even the Joker himself says,
"I'm crazy enough to take on Batman, but the IRS, no thank you."
Yep. And as he explains to the judge, it must be someone else. It can't be me.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of reminds me of the 10cc song, also called Good Morning Judge, which we might get to someday. Yeah, it's just another fun song. And as many times as I've heard that opening joke, I just never get tired of it. Call it a dad joke, whatever you want. It's just like one of the best bad jokes ever.
Next track, "Oh Me, Oh My, I'm a Fool for You." We're getting that sitar sound from the 60s, which I didn't expect on this album.
Well, you could create that on a guitar.
Yeah, that's true.
That was a big thing back in the 60s. Thanks, George. Well, that was a thing,
Yeah.
George got the sitar and everyone else realized, oh my God, we got to do this.
Yep.
The Beatles did it. We got to copy the crap out of them.
Dad, what I'm saying is I didn't expect it on this album in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It also ends with the fade out, which I didn't expect either. This isn't as sad a song as you'd think it'd be, considering he's admitting he'd make himself a fool for love. He'd be happy to do it so long as it gets her attention. You just find yourself nodding along saying, "Yeah, buddy, been there." But you don't feel bad for him because you get the sense that Buster would always want to get a laugh, even if it was at his expense.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's for the girl he loves, so it hurts, but hey, whatever it takes. Interesting ballad for him to do. As for Lulu, she reminds me of Olivia Newton-John or Petula Clark, but with more of a rocky edge.
Yeah.
And I appreciate how she doesn't do the same performance twice. And you also kind of have to change it in a studio so you don't blow the audience's ear off when doing it on TV. So it sounds more natural, like a ballad. As for Aretha, she goes full tragic ballad with this and you want to cry. I mean, compared to Aretha, no contest.
Mm-hmm. This is written by James Doris and first recorded by Lulu in 1969. And she did another version in 1971, which I thought was so much better than the original. The original just seemed like it wasn't conveying the emotion, but that version she did 2 years later, she nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just, she got me. The woman just got me.
Mm.
And then she did it yet again in 2023 with Frances the Gypsy Queens, which I wasn't able to listen to that version. And there's been a few other versions, and yes, Aretha Franklin does one, and if you cannot be moved by her version, check your pulse because you're probably dead. And then there's Buster's version, and he does calm things down a lot. There's no shtick whatsoever.
No.
He sings it very straightforward, and I think he did a good job, and I think he's singing this song more as David Johansen than Buster. He just kind of puts Buster aside for...
Because he knows it's what's needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Next track, What Do You Want?
What do I want? I want people to leave me alone. I want people to think for themselves. No, what do you want?
Dog and a bear. All I could hear is Ghostbusters when I read the title. Ghostbusters, what do you want? And unpopular opinion, I didn't think Ghostbusters was that funny. I was like, it's fine. That's it.
Oh, okay.
This man has everything in the world, and all he wants is a girl to love. Think, can't buy me love, but you're already rich.
Yeah.
The call and response work really well, showing his inner circle who flat out just don't get it. And the woman who duets with him reminds me of one of the singers from the Manhattan Transfer. I wouldn't be surprised if it was her. Fun back and forth here. And I had no idea the original was the Coasters. I hadn't heard them in forever. The high voice makes that one sound more innocent and fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was written by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoll, first recorded by the Robins in 1955, who would eventually go on to become the Coasters. And like you said, what does Buster want? He don't want no cashmere coat or anything else, really. He just wants a little girl to love. But check her ID first.
Please, for the love of God, I'm getting sick of this.
Yep. Now, Buster's version is good, but the Robins do it so much better. But I cannot deny the catchiness of the Biabba-dabo, Biabba-da, hoi hoi.
Mm-hmm.
I like the hoi hois too.
Hoi hoi.
Yeah.
All right, next track, House of the Rising Sun. Yes, you heard that right, and it's exactly the one you think it is. I really like this as a saloon song, and Buster sings it completely serious here. You can tell he really respects this song, and he knows a saloon singer is the best character to have sing it. It's played completely straight and with sincerity, which is what makes it a great cover. As for the Animals original, I re-listened to it because it was years ago when we covered the Animals, and I remember not being too impressed with it at the time. The only song I downloaded was Baby Let Me Take You Home.
Mm-hmm.
I was much more impressed by the vocals of the Animals this time around, which gives me this opinion. If you have a great vocalist, it doesn't matter what backing instruments you choose for this song. But I gotta admit, I like Buster's a lot more. Come at me, purists. I don't care. Have fun asking Mommy to give you back your PlayStation. Dad's face.
Whoa. Well, yeah, there's been a bazillion versions of...
Oh, I'm sure.
And once again, I think this is David Johansen just putting aside Buster.
I think I heard Buster a bit in this. Yeah. But it was Buster, bringing down the mood a little bit.
I guess, but I think he did it because, he did do that Animals medley back in 1982, and I think he just really likes the band, and it's a timeless song, and the way that he sings it, you feel like he truly lived everything that happens in this song. He's just like so down and out, and just there's like no hope. Like the House of the Rising Sun just ruined him for the rest of his life, and you're actually surprised that he lived to tell the tale. And I think the horn-driven arrangement is just great. Just a great cover.
Next track, Cannibal. That opening guitar was Who-esque.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely see Pinball Wizard.
Yep. And then the notes that came in after that sounded like, Jesus Christ, Superstar. You hear it, don't you, now?
You kind of do, yep, thanks.
And then Buster sang, and I was like, oh no, this guy's back. I've heard this song before, too, and I wonder if it was supposed to be Hot Hot Hot's little sibling.
I kind of think so. I think it was their attempt to come up with Hot Hot Hot, the sequel.
Yeah.
And this time, it's personal.
Buster ends up in Spanish Town, which might be Spanish Town, Jamaica?
Well, I'll tell you, I did a lot of research. There's so many Spanish towns out there,
okay.
and whichever one you're comfortable with going.
Okay, and everyone is going cannibal. He can't believe what he's seeing and wishes he'd gone to French Town instead. The bass singer's asking who's that on the road to Spanish Town are pretty pretty funny with their lower registers. Other than that, another song that did nothing for me.
Okay, this was written by David Johansen and Joe Delia. And like I said, I think this was their own attempt to come up with Hot Hot Hot. And yeah, Buster's on the road to Frenchtown contemplating good times, but everyone he meets on the road is a cannibal. I'm thinking, well, should he be worried?
I mean, I'd be worried.
Or are they just like consuming good times? Like, it's people eating other people. And he says, he should have gone to Spanish Town instead because they know how to throw a party. And I don't think you have to worry about it turning into like, Night of the Living Dead
Yeah. Or Shaun of the Dead.
I also did a search for F Street, and the first one that comes up is the Washington D.C. one, but there's so many F Streets around the world, and same with Spanish Town. So whichever one you'd want to choose, I'm sure it works.
Throw a dart at the map.
Yeah, and anyway, this song is just a nonstop party, and I think it's definitely a hot, hot, hot wannabe. It comes close, but that one point where Buster lets out the yabba dabba doo yell, it's just perfect, and that's why I said earlier, if they ever reboot the Flintstones cartoon, David Johansen is your Fred. Easily.
Final track, Heart of Gold. Wow, this song was sobering. His partner thinks he's a whore, or as Frank Reynolds would say, whore. But geez, he still has feelings like everyone else. And he's vulnerable, too. A good gut punch to end an album on because you kind of don't expect it from him. And you can't believe it happened, and you want to listen to the whole album again. I hope he leaves this heartless person and finds someone who will protect him in the way he wants.
Yep, this was written by one David Johansen and first available on his 1981 album, Here Comes the Night. And I saw an interview. He said that before he performed the song, he said that it was one of his favorite songs. And when he thought of it, he said he actually had the presence of mind to write it all down when he got home.
Good.
And he always closes his shows with this song, so when you hear it, you know it's time to go.
All right, everybody, pack up.
So it kind of makes sense to close out Buster Poindexter with it, like he's done this performance thing, and now it's time to go. And again, it's David singing, not the Buster persona. And that first line, you think I'm a whore, but I got a heart of gold. Considering it came out in 1981, at first, I took it to be his acknowledgement of his New York Dolls past. Like, yeah, this is what I did, but, I'm not that guy. There's more to me than that. And then I think him singing it on Buster's album, I think he might be addressing it to people who thought, like, he sold out his character to the masses because it was just like a local neighborhood thing. And now it's like, well, everyone knows who this is now. And, people will always get jealous of, like, you've got this cult following and then it just blows up big. And I think there might be something to that, but he's just trying to prove, like, I'm human just as everyone else. I need protection from the cold. And it just is like, it just really, really gets to you. I mean, you hear him sing it. I mean, it's just such a great, thoughtful song. And I think it's just such a surprising way to end an album that I think many people thought was just a novelty album. It just really
throws you off,
slaps you upside the head. Like, wait, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But it's just a great song.
Overall, the Buster Poindexter album was like a sandwich. Stale bread that does nothing for me on top, some decent deli meat in the middle, and like a regular slice of wheat bread on the bottom.
Oh, it sounds like you got it from Panera. Ha!
God, I can't believe they cut all those menu items. Oh, man.
Damn you, Panera, for cutting my cheese and pepperoni.
And my salad, and my broccoli cheddar mac and cheese, and my smoothie. What's even the point? Anyway, David Johansen / Buster Poindexter has got a great voice. The musicians sounded fantastic, and the songs were well written, but he just doesn't do it for me. So, listeners, listen to this album and form your own judgment. If you like him, fine. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah, overall, it's a good album. And if you are tired of Hot, 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 though, there are 10 other songs on Buster that you could check out.
Yeah.
And if you like this album, check out his live one as David Johansen, Live It Up. You get a different take on the man and his music.
I also think he could have been a stand-up comic with that interview he did on Johnny Carson.
Oh, easily. He's always good for stories. And I forgot to even mention this. My friend Jeanette actually met him on a plane.
Really? What happened?
Because I think she had gone to me with the to the Buster show, and she recognized him and said, "Hey, aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah." And he ended up buying her a drink, and they just shot the bull for a little while.
Oh,
so
that's nice.
It went pretty well.
Yeah. All right, as always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz, because remember, the more you interact with the video, the greater chance we have of appearing on the YouTube homepage. If you follow me on social media, I post the episodes there, and if you're friends with Dad, send him an email saying what you want to listen to, and he'll send it right to your inbox. As always, thank you for listening to the latest installment of My Dad Listens to This. We will be back next time with another album to nitpick and gripe about. Dad, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yes, listeners, if you're feeling hot, 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 you may need to see a doctor.
Please do.